Karen pulls Army vet's prosthetic leg at playground, gives it to her kids. So I am a 35-year-old veteran who served our country for 10 years in the military. I was deployed to Afghanistan where I lost my left leg in combat. Since then I've been using a prosthetic leg to get around. I have a wife and 2 young children, a boy and a girl who mean the world to me. We live in a small town where everyone knows each other and we try to lead a normal life as much as possible. On this particular summer day I had decided to take my family to the playground at the local park. I was kind of looking forward to spending some quality time with my kids and watching them play on the swings and slides. My wife and I were sitting on a nearby bench chatting and enjoying the warm weather while our kids were running around and having fun. And well, everything was going great until a woman, who I later found out her name was Karen, appeared out of nowhere and began to approach me. I noticed that her kids were with her and they were pointing and laughing at my prosthetic leg. "Hey, can I talk to you for a moment?" Karen said in a very entitled and dismissive tone. "Sure, what's up?" I replied. "My kids are fascinated by your leg," Karen said. "They want to play with it. Can you let them?" I could not believe what I was hearing. I told Karen that my prosthetic leg was not a toy and that it was an important piece of equipment for me. "Come on, it's just for a little bit. My kids will be careful with it," Karen said, trying to persuade me. "I'm sorry, but I cannot let you do that," I replied firmly. "Why not? You're not using it right now," Karen said in a very untitled and dismissive tone. "Because it's not a toy. It's an important part of my body. It helps me walk and move around," I said, trying to make her understand. "Well, I think you're being unfair. My kids deserve to have fun too," Karen said, getting agitated. "I understand that, but my leg is not a toy for them to play with," I said, trying to remain calm. "Fine, have it your way," Karen said, and she turned around and walked away. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. A few minutes later Karen came back, and this time with a determined look on her face. She walked up to me and without warning, she grabbed my leg and yanked it off my body. I stumbled and fell to the ground in shock and pain. My wife and kids were screaming and other park goers were staring in shock. "What the HLL are you doing? Give me my leg back," I shouted, trying to get up. "No, my kids want it and they're gonna have it," Karen said in a very entitled and dismissive tone once again. I could not take it anymore. I lunged at Karen and we got into a physical altercation. It was a chaotic scene with Karen's kids running around and screaming, and my wife and kids trying to intervene and the other park goers staring in shock. The fight was intense with both of us throwing punches and trying to gain control of the prosthetic leg. I was determined to get my leg back, but Karen was equally determined to keep it for her kids. Just as it seemed like the fight would never end, the police arrived. They immediately separated us and took Karen into custody. I explained the situation to the officers and they listened attentively. They took my statement and arrested Karen for theft and assault. As they were taking Karen away, she shouted and cursed at me, saying that I was overreacting and that she had done nothing wrong. But I knew that I had stood up for myself and that justice would be served. The officers then returned my leg to me and I was able to finally leave the playground with my family. I was still shaken by the whole experience, but I was glad that justice had been served. In the end, Karen was charged with theft, assault and battery and other charges that could lead to a prison sentence. It was a hard lesson for her to learn, but it just goes to show that no one is above the law, not even entitled parents like Karen. As a military veteran, I could not believe that someone would treat my prosthetic leg like a toy, and would go as far as to physically attack me, trying to take it away from me. It serves as a reminder that we should always show respect and gratitude to veterans who have sacrificed so much for our country. The incident left me with bruises and cuts, but it also left me with a sense of victory because I stood up for myself and my rights. It's important that we speak up when we see something that's wrong, and it's the only way to make sure that justice is really served. But to be honest, it took me a while to get over the shock of what had happened. It was a traumatic event for me, my wife and my children. But with the support of my family and the community, I was able to move on and continue to live my life. I hope that Karen learned her lesson and that she will never treat anyone's prosthetic leg or any disability equipment as a toy. I also hope that this incident serves as a reminder to everyone that veterans and people with disabilities deserve respect and dignity just like everyone else. After the incident at the playground, I decided to speak out about the importance of showing respect and empathy towards veterans and people with disabilities. I started giving talks at local schools and community events and sharing my story and educating people about the sacrifices that veterans made for the country. I also started working with veterans organizations, helping other veterans who were struggling with the physical and emotional effects of their service. I just wanted to make sure that no other veteran had to go through what I did and that everyone received the support and respect they deserved. As for Karen, finally, she was convicted of the charges against her and was sentenced to several months in jail. She of course also had to pay restitution for the cost of my prosthetic leg and the damages caused during the altercation. She also had to attend a course on empathy and cultural sensitivity. It's been a few years since the incident and I've moved on with my life, but I will never forget that summer day at the playground and the lesson I learned. Honestly, it taught me the importance of standing up for myself and speaking out against injustice, and it also taught me the importance of educating others and promoting empathy and understanding towards veterans and people with disabilities. Update to the story: years had passed since the incident at the playground and I thought I had seen the last of entitled people like Karen. However, one day while I was out shopping at the mall, I encountered yet another entitled person who thought I was faking my disability. I was browsing the store when a woman approached me. Her name was Karen and she was the same woman from the playground incident, but she had changed her name and moved to another town. She did not recognize me at first, but when she did, she had a sinister grin on her face. "Excuse me, sir, but are you really disabled or are you just pretending to be?" Karen asked in a harsh tone. I could not believe it was her. I tried to ignore her, but she continued to harass me, trying to make a scene in front of other customers. I told her to leave me alone, but she refused to do so. "I find that hard to believe. You seem to be walking fine and you don't look disabled," Karen said, her tone growing more condescending by the minute. I was getting angry, but I tried to remain calm. Just because someone does not look disabled, it doesn't mean that they are not. Disabilities come in all shapes and forms and it's not for anyone to judge, I replied. However, Karen refused to listen. She called the mall security and falsely reported that I had threatened her and her children. Mall security came and took me out of the store, but I explained the situation and showed them my prosthetic leg and military ID. They then apologized for the inconvenience, and they banned Karen from the mall permanently. Karen's plan backfired and she was embarrassed in front of everyone. She tried to make excuses, but no one was listening. She was escorted out of the mall by security and banned from entering the mall again. I was left feeling satisfied I had stood up for myself again and had put Karen in her place. It's important to always speak up when we see something that's wrong, and it's the only way to make sure that justice is served and that people like Karen learn from their mistakes. As veterans, we have sacrificed so much for our country, and it's only fair that we receive the respect and dignity that we deserve. I will continue to fight for that for myself and for all veterans who have served our country. I could not believe that Karen had the audacity to show up again and try to falsely accuse me of something. It just goes to show how entitled and malicious some people can be. But then again, I was glad that I had stood up for myself and that justice had been served once again. I was glad that Karen had been banned from the mall, and I hoped that she would learn from her mistake and change her ways. Story 2. I, John Smith, was just an average Joe trying to build a better life for my family. We had just purchased a home in a small Nevada community, and we were excited to start this new chapter in our lives. Little did we know the nightmare that was about to ensue. The community was governed by a ruthless homeowners association, HOA, board who held an iron grip on the community and would stop at nothing to maintain their power and wealth. It all started when I began to notice strange charges appearing on my monthly HOA fees. Despite repeated requests for an explanation, the HOA board refused to provide any clarity on the matter. I soon learned that this was a common occurrence among the residents and that anyone who dared to question the HOA's actions would be met with resistance and intimidation. Many of my neighbors had faced similar problems, and some had even been belittled, harassed, and falsely accused of violating community rules just for speaking out against the HOA. I knew I had to get to the bottom of this, and so I started to investigate their HOA's finances. What I discovered was a web of corruption and embezzlement, with their HOA board members using community funds for their own personal gain. They had been pocketing money meant for community maintenance and improvement and using it for lavish vacations, expensive cars, and other luxuries. They also had been using HOA funds to pay for frivolous lawsuits against any resident who dared to question their authority. One outrageous example of the HOA's absence of power was when they had falsely accused one of my neighbors, an elderly couple, of violating community rules by having a flower pot on their front porch. They had harassed and intimidated the couple, even going as far as to file a lawsuit against them, causing them immense stress and financial burden. The couple, unable to take the pressure, had to move out of the community, leaving behind their lifelong home and memories. Another example was when the HOA had imposed exorbitant fines on a young family for having a trampoline in their backyard, which was a common feature in many homes in the community. They had falsely claimed that the trampoline was a safety hazard and had threatened the family with eviction if they did not remove it. The family, unable to afford the fines and the legal fees, had to sell their home and move out of the community. I knew I could not let this continue. I had to speak out against this corruption and abuse of power. However, when I tried to bring this information to light, I was met with even more resistance and intimidation from the HOA board. They even went as far as to file a lawsuit against me, attempting to silence me and cover up their shady actions. However, I was not one to back down so easily. I fought back, hiring a team of lawyers and taking the case all the way to the Nevada Supreme Court. The court battle was long and grueling, with the HOA board pulling out all the stops to silence me and maintain their power. But in the end, thankfully, justice prevailed. The HOA board was found guilty of embezzlement and fraud, and all of the stolen funds were returned to the community. The board members were also charged with multiple counts of harassment, intimidation, and abuse of power, and faced significant prison sentences. I had achieved the ultimate revenge and had come out victorious. I had taken on the corrupt and powerful HOA board and had not only exposed their crimes but had also brought about real change for the betterment of the community. My actions had restored the faith of the residents in the power of the legal system to hold those in positions of authority accountable for their actions. I had stood up for what was right and had brought about a change that was much needed. My victory was celebrated by the community, who had been suffering under the HOA's tyrannical rule for far too long. They came together to thank me for my deeds and my bravery, and I felt a sense of pride and accomplishment like never before. However, my victory was not just about personal satisfaction. It was about ensuring that such a travesty would never happen again. Together with my fellow community members, we voted to remove every single member of the corrupt HOA board and elect new honest representatives. We also implemented strict measures to ensure transparency and accountability in the handling of community funds to prevent any recurrence of such corruption. The community was transformed, and it was all thanks to my tireless efforts and determination to make things right. To be honest, my story serves as a reminder that even the most powerful and corrupt organizations can be brought down by one person's determination and willingness to fight for what is right. I am proud of what I have accomplished, and I hope that my story will inspire others to speak out against corruption and abuse of power and to never give up the fight for justice and fair treatment. Story 3. I worked at this hotel for over 2 years and was one of 2 people left that went through the training when our hotel changed hotel franchises. During this training, we were told about certain rules the company had. The cast is the manager aka front desk manager, and he was only here for 4 to 6 months at this point. I'm a nice guy unless you're a BLE or an entitled person. A few others I will mention as we go through. So, story. One afternoon I was scheduled to work the second shift 3 to 11. I walked in and both the AM front desk co-workers looked like they had been massively crying as their makeup was smeared. My manager was looking quite pissed. I ask, "What is wrong, manager? We have a major JRK as a guest. This guy is the highest level on the rewards for the hotel chain. He is very demanding and wants free upgrades, free this or that, and screams anytime he has an interaction with the staff. This guy has made every department call me complaining about him. Now this guy just came to the desk and screamed at these 2 co-workers until they were both crying. These 2 ladies were fresh high school graduates and were very sweet and innocent people. They loved helping people and did not deserve this treatment." As he is explaining this, I look up this guy's room details. Once my manager finished explaining everything this guy had done, I saw this guy's info, and I had a smile from ear to ear. I replied, "Didn't you see he is an employee of a different hotel?" "Manager, yes, but so what?" I replied. "First off, while you travel as an employee, you are required to behave and be respectful. It's in the fine print on the discount form." I grabbed his form and showed it to the manager. Failure to be respectful can lead to having your employee discount suspended or permanently revoked, and even you can get terminated. You need to call this guy's hotel and ask for the GM, then explain to him who you are and what this guy is doing. I looked up the hotel phone number and called the hotel and then handed my manager the phone. Manager, after his call ends with the GM, he has an evil and satisfying smile on his face. His GM is steaming mad after I described all the stuff this guy has done. Main switchboard phone rings. I answered, "Hello, thank you for calling the hotel name. How may I direct your call, please?" Caller, "I want to speak to the entitled JRK's room, please." I replied, "Absolutely, sir. Have a nice day." Transferred the call and looked at my manager and said with a sarcastic tone, "Well, someone wants to talk to the entitled JRK. Geez, I wonder who that could be." Manager continued after he stopped laughing. The GM gave me his personal cell phone number and said if I have any more issues at all to call him immediately. I am then leaving the phone number right next to the switchboard. If you need it, call him. I told the manager, your revenge is done. Now for my revenge. Manager whined-eyed, oh damn, what are you gonna do? Me smiling a very evil smile, you will see. I picked up the phone to make a call. Hello, Hotel Rewards customer service. Yes, I would like to report someone using a rewards account while using an employee discount on his stay. Customer service immediately. He cannot do that. I replied, I know, I'm calling to report to him. I gave her the guest reservation number and rewards member number. I continued, I bet anything if you dig through this guy's history, you will find all his stays are probably at employee discount. Customer service, I'm starting a ticket to have this guy's account investigated. I replied, thank you, and then I hung up the phone. The manager watched as I then removed his rewards number from his stay. My manager had a huge grin on his face. That was awesome. I explained, oh, I'm not quite finished with him yet. It's time to go spread the news to all departments. He is no longer a rewards member. I made a new key for his room without concierge access. I walked around to every department as I explained why I was stopping by. Everyone had the same reaction as soon as I mentioned the guy's name. Oh God, now what about this a hole? I finished explaining how he was no longer a rewards member and if he gives anyone issues to call the front desk immediately. And his GM already probably tore him a new one just a minute ago. Everyone was so happy at this news. I finally went to the concierge room, used the guest's new key to avoid his current key. Then I walked into the room and explained the information to the evening concierge. She cringed at the mention of his name. After explaining she would not have to deal with him again and asked her to leave the morning person a note about this guy not being allowed in the concierge room anymore. She was very happy. While I was gone, evidently the manager explained what we did to the 2 a.m. front desk ladies. The minute I got back to the desk, both my front desk co-workers all came up to me and gave me a huge hug and thanked me so many times. Manager to me after the other co-workers went home. Do me a huge favor please. I replied, sure, what's up? Manager, if I ever piss you off, please come tell me so I can fix the issue. Later that night the entitled JRK comes to the desk head in hand politely saying his key does not work. I replied, oh so sorry about that, let me make you a new key. In the best fake smile I could muster, aftermath. Next day I checked his rewards account and it is now suspended. Check back next week, sorry, account number not found.